Hi, welcome back to this month's character DIY. Today we are going to be creating Alina Starkov's Sea Whip Fetter bracelet from the series Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It's basically a bracelet made from golden scales that Alina uses to amplify her Sun Summoner powers. So here is what you will need. Anything that is flat and can be cut. It could be cardboard or foam. I am using this gold placemat with a certain pattern that reminds me of dragon scales. And don't worry if it's not gold, because we can definitely just paint that gold later. It can be any color at this stage. A glue gun with glue sticks, and I have a gold colored spray paint just in case. On the other side, I have a pair of scissors, a marker, anything to mark the cardboard or placemat with, and I have some kind of a bracelet or cuff. I just had this lying around and it happened to be gold, but you can use any cuff or bracelet that you have on hand, or even just buy it. It doesn't have to be gold because we can paint that later. So I'm going to decide which side of the placemat is going to be showing up and which one I'm going to draw on and glue later. So the side that's facing me is the smooth side, so that's what I'm going to draw on. And then the other side is more rough and feels more like scales, so that's the one that's going to be facing up. And now I am going to be drawing scale shapes using the width of the cuff as a guide on the smooth side. So here is what I did. I drew the scales on the edges of the placemat just so it's one less side for me to cut out. And then when I used the width of the cuff to measure out how many scales I'll need to cut out, I was only able to fit 2. So that's what I'm going with. I went with pairs of scales. So now that I have all the scales drawn out, I'm going to be cutting them up, and let's see how that turns out. I've cut out all my scales, and this is what they look like. I'm going to put the glue on the side that has traces of the marker, just so the final result is clean. And I also made sure that I cut the edges of the last pair of scales that I'm going to use in a curve so they fit the cuff better. Okay, now that we have all our scales ready, it's time to start gluing. We are going to be overlapping the scales one on top of the other. So I am going to start with the one that goes on the bottom first, of course. And then just check how it's going to look when it's glued down. This is what the first pair of scales will look like once it's glued to the cuff. I also want to make sure that the edges of the scales are lined up with the edges of the cuff, but the scales are curving outwardly to kind of cover the edge too. So now we are just going to start overlapping the scales and glue them down. This is what the second pair of scales looks like when it's overlapped over the first. And then we're just going to keep going until we reach the edge. Progress check. So I am more than halfway to gluing around the cuff, and this is what it looks like so far. Don't worry about the marker showing up. You can either paint over that later or just ignore it. And we keep going. And this is what it looks like finished. I'm going to show you how it looks all around. This is what it looks like when you're wearing it. If the marker still bothers you, you can paint over it. I didn't, and when I took pictures with it, you couldn't even see it, so I was fine with that. I also just got rid of the glue gun strings to make sure it was all clean. And here is how the final look turned out. I am so ready for the Shadow and Bone adaptation to drop on Netflix on April 23rd. That is this Friday. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to this month's character DIY. I hope you liked it and that you'll try it out. If you do, make sure to post a picture of it and tag us either on Instagram or Facebook. And tune in for next month's character DIY. Bye!